All right, so why don't we get started this evening? We'll welcome everybody to our now second and maybe annual virtual open house. I think last year, overall, this went over really well. Gave us an opportunity to talk a little bit about our program, a little bit about our culture, and honestly, for you guys, for all the students to hear more from our residents rather than some of our faculty. My name is Brian Scannell. I'm the program director here at Carolinas Medical Center. This evening will be hosted by me, Dr. Kelsey Koh, who's one of our PGY5s, Dr. Eric Sechrist, one of our other PGY5s, and Dr. Joseph Jelasaint, one of our PGY3s. This is set up as a meeting format, so please make sure that you guys have your microphones on mute. What we'll be able to do is allow you to unmute for questions later, and I would also encourage you to put any questions as we go in the chat, and we'll start fielding those at the end. We're going to try to get through things a little bit quicker this year maybe than last year so that we have a little bit more time to talk with y'all and answer any questions that you have. So Joseph, you can head to the next slide. So I wanted to talk a little bit first about kind of what's in a name. So I think a lot of people, when they apply to our program, they hear Carolinas, but I think it's important to kind of understand the name and the background here. So Atrium Health is our healthcare system, and Carolinas Medical Center is our flagship hospital where the residency program is named after this hospital. Carolinas Medical Center is a level 1 trauma center and is one of the busier ones in the country. And as part of our atrium faculty, both our trauma surgeons as well as our tumor surgeons are employed by Atrium Health. We also, as part of our program, OrthoCarolina is a major part of the program and one of the largest multi-specialty orthopedic groups in the country. We have over 40 faculty members as part of OrthoCarolina. Within Atrium Health is our Atrium Health Musculoskeletal Institute, and this really brings together our Atrium Health faculty on the trauma and tumor side, as well as primary care sports medicine, in addition to OrthoCarolina and Carolina Neurosurgery and Spine to really bring a more multidisciplinary approach to MSK care. You can go to the next slide. So just briefly, I wanted to introduce a few people, and I don't have pictures up on the few people that I wanted to introduce first. But Susan Kolstam is our program manager. Susan will wave there. Susan has an outstanding team behind her as well. Helen Womack is our program coordinator for our residency program. And then Hannah Lyons is our medical student coordinator and also works with our trauma fellowship. So these three ladies really keep us looking good and are outstanding, and many of you have already communicated with one of probably the three of them. So our faculty here, just briefly with introductions, Dr. Moorman is our chairman and president of the Musculoskeletal Institute. He is a sports medicine physician. Dr. Josh Patt is the vice chair of education and is one of the tumor surgeons and also does spine at Atrium Health. I already introduced myself, and then my two associate program directors, Dr. Larry Kempton, who is one of our trauma surgeons, and Dr. Natty Hammond, who's one of the shoulder elbow surgeons over at OrthoCarolina. So we are very excited. We just recently, within this last year, moved into a new space for our Musculoskeletal Institute, as well as for our residency program. So at Mercy Hospital, which is just a little over a mile away from Carolinas Medical Center, where we do a lot of our inpatient elective orthopedic surgeries, so joints, sports medicine, some hand as well, certainly a lot of foot and ankle as well over at this hospital. We have our new residency program offices over there, which has been really a lot of fun for me as well as a program director, because it allows me on my admin days to kind of be around for the residents to kind of pop in. We have a workroom with multiple computer stations for our residents that are new and set up. And then within the last year, we also now have a wellness room. You can see on that bottom right-hand corner, we've got a new Peloton, as well as some other exercise equipment for our residents to be able to get in some quick exercise. But this space has really been outstanding for us. and will continue to evolve too over the next few years with what we have here to offer for our residents. And head to the next slide. So briefly, our mission here is to educate and provide career development for future leaders in orthopedic surgery. We really want to recruit a diverse group of individuals to not only reflect the community in which we live here locally, but also regionally and nationally. And we know many programs are out there are outstanding at teaching orthopedic surgery, but we want to make sure that we're doing more than that. So to create future leaders, to foster mentorship, as well as research, to really put forth your best foot when you're leaving here and entering fellowship and then beyond in your career. So I'm going to turn things over. I think Joseph is leading off the next slide. So Joseph, I'll turn things over to you next.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Dr. Scannell. Thank you all for being here. We're so excited to have you. We're going to go ahead and just give a couple slides on some very commonly asked questions about our program, as well as some highlights. And again, we're going to leave some time at the end for you guys to ask any further questions about what we've already presented or anything we didn't. So here at CMC, we have a mentorship model. And you'll see a few pictures up there. All the way on the left, that's Dr. Geary. He's actually one of the hand fellows now, but was one of our great residents with Dr. Chatterton. That's me in the middle with Dr. Spector, one of our spine surgeons. And that's Dr. Owens on the right with Dr. Gant, one of his mentors. So, here we have a mentorship model. The same reason that we have, some of the best fellowships in the world is the same reason I think we have the best residency in the world. We have these great attendings that are, world renowned. And when you're on their service, it's you and them. Their cases are your cases, and you're learning one-on-one. You build graduated autonomy throughout the month, and it's really such a great experience. And these mentors are not only mentors in the operating room or at work, that relationship extends beyond that. Again, you can see me and Dr. Spector there in the middle at lunch. Dr. Geary gave this slide last year, and he had a picture of Dr. Chatterton or a video pushing his kids into swing. So, we really have a unique model here, and it fosters these really great relationships with our attendings. And then, Charlotte is a phenomenal place to live. There's so much to do in Charlotte. It's a extremely affordable city. It's a beautiful city. Up at the top left, you can see that's Freedom Park. My wife and kids go there all the time. We're 3 hours from the beach. We're 3 hours from the mountains. There's plenty of stuff to do. You'll see here we have, numerous professional sports teams. We have the Panthers, the Hornets, the new Charlotte Football Club. If you're in NASCAR, we have NASCAR as well as some Division I college teams like the Charlotte 49ers, and baseball like the Charlotte Knights. On the bottom left, you'll see, we have the National Whitewater Center here. If you go there on Saturday mornings, you'll see the USA team practicing, some whitewater stuff there. My wife and I actually have year-long memberships there. So there's so much to do here, and so much that Charlotte has to offer. And, at Ortho Carolina, we're actually the team physicians for, the Panthers, the new Charlotte Football Club, the 49ers, the Knights, and NASCAR. So we have a lot to offer here in Charlotte. With that kind of introduction, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Koh to talk about kind of some of our resident education.
Hey everybody, I'm Kelsey Koh. I'm one of the fifth year residents. Thank you guys all for being here today. It's great to see so many of you on the call. Beyond just the mentorship model, there's so much more to the resident education piece here. Just to kind of piggyback on what Joseph said, I think that one of the great benefits in my mind of the mentorship model is, I think we've all been on those rotations where you work with multiple attendings in a week, and you're a student, and you're asked, one of them to evaluate you by the end of the month, and you think, oh my gosh, this person worked with me for 3 days. What do they, really know about how much I've learned? And I think the mentorship model really appealed to me because of that, for that reason, because I got to sort of be one-on-one with one person, learn what their preferences are throughout the month. And inevitably you run out of work things to talk about, and you really get to know the person over the course of the month, which really works well for me and sort of the way I learn and my ability to feel comfortable with my teacher that way. But beyond the mentorship model, we have daily conferences. So, programs do this differently. Some programs have a whole afternoon or evening of multiple lectures in 1 week. We tend to break it up, which appeals to me. I don't know about you, but I have a hard time paying attention to any lecture beyond 45 minutes. And so we do 1 lecture a day every morning that starts at 6:45 after we do trauma checkout. And that's virtual, which is nice right now for, because we do operate at a couple of different sites across the city. We do a yearly course as a class, which is really nice. So my class just went to the American Academy of Orthopedic Surgery together in San Diego. It's a great opportunity to learn in a different environment or do different courses and things, but it also gives you an opportunity every year to go somewhere new with your class, which I have so many memories over the last 5 years of having done that with my classmates. And I know that, Brad and I get to the airport really early, and Eric and Randy, maybe not so much. So I think those are also really fun trips that we do. We have a yearly education fund that you can use for things like books or going on specific other courses that you may be interested in. We have grand rounds every week on Thursday mornings. Those are a variety of different things, from visiting professors to resident presentations to kind of local visiting professors, where attendings will give updates on things that they're working on research wise, and then of course things like M&M, that kind of thing. We have really great sim lab and anatomy lab opportunities. We have a wet lab at Mercy Hospital where we do a lot of cadaver labs and have a arthroscopy simulator. And then at CMC main campus, where trauma is housed, we have a dry lab, kind of sawbones lab. This last week, I'm trauma chief right now, and we, in the last week, have done an X-Fix lab, as well as, we reviewed kind of different striker nails in the dry lab as well. And so it's really nice to have 24/7 access to that too. And then one of, I think, the highlights really of all of residency is we have a really robust intern skills month. That's August of your intern year, where basically, all the interns have programming for most of the day for the entire week and go over things like casting and splinting. You can see down in the corner, that's intern skills lab, them doing casts together, doing different approaches on cadavers. Attendings and senior residents will come and talk about, how to give a talk or how to do research. We really kind of cover the gamut of things. We'll teach you about, common ER procedures. And I think that's always really a hit from the intern class in terms of just being able to get to know one another. Historically, we have sent our intern class to AO Basic to learn kind of basics of fracture care during that month. And 1 year, the group also went to and did an arthroscopy course down, I think it was Arthrex down in Florida. So trips and other fun things that month, COVID restrictions permitting.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Kelsey. I'm going to turn it over to Olivia to kind of talk about some of the research here at CMC and in the research year.
Yeah, hey, so my name is Olivia Rice. I did the research year now 2 years ago. And so I'm just going to kind of give a brief overview. You can see on the screen here some of the 3 people that really lead the research year for the research resident. This is Dr. Seymour. On the left, she is our PhD and head research scientist. And then Dr. Xu in the middle just is a trauma physician, but just takes a really integral role in the research mentorship, and you'll meet with him weekly. And then Dr. Scannell on the right is sort of involved in more of the leadership aspects of the research resident and also mentors them as well. Next slide. So just some of the basics of the research year. Overall, there's 1 research resident per class. So you can see the 4 people who have most recently done this position. Ben Avercamp on the bottom is the current research resident. The research year occurs after PGY 1 year, so between your intern and PGY 2 year. We get a lot of questions on this actually, just in terms of why that year and what the pros and cons of that are. And really the rationale is because your intern year is sort of, you're doing a bunch of different things, including EM, trauma, gen surg trauma, vascular, and then 6 months of orthopedics as well. But PGY 2 years really when you get your feet wet with the mentorship model and really start operating a ton. And so the idea is that we want to do the research year before you sort of start building your momentum for your surgical skills as a PGY2 resident. And so the thought is just if it goes between your PGY2 and 3 year or after that, then you sort of disrupt that momentum and your increasing surgical skill set. So overall, you do a full year. There's no option for like a 6-month research year or something like that, but you do get paid as a PGY2. So technically I'm a clinical PGY3 right now, but I get paid as a PGY4 because it's my 4th year of residency. And this is the same ERAS application for this, like everybody. So we don't have a separate match spot for the research resident. You just apply it with everybody else. And so I think the biggest thing that people want to know is, how does the process go for choosing that resident, and how do you avoid it if you're not interested? So basically when you're interviewing with us, I think probably now receive an email. It used to be when it was in person. We would just have you fill out like a form while you were in the interview room, but basically it just asks you, are you interested in the research year? Yes, no, or maybe. And I was on the research committee last year. I can absolutely guarantee with no doubt that nobody looks at that until after match day. So basically it does not influence your chance of getting, your chance of matching here. It doesn't influence our decision whatsoever. It's purely for us to look at after we match people and say, okay, who's interested in the research year? And honestly, it hasn't happened, I think, ever that everybody said no. So we, like Dr. Scannell said, like to recruit a very diverse group of people here. And so inevitably somebody's going to at least say maybe. And so that's another thing too. If you're not interested in at all, don't put maybe, because you might be put on the hook for that if everybody else says no. But typically there is somebody that's interested in doing it and passionate about it. And so while some people, from a financial standpoint would, say, why would you want to do an extra year residency? I think everybody has a little bit different reason. For me personally, it was, I hadn't taken any time off since I went straight through undergrad and med school. And I really just wanted a year to think about things more thoroughly. I just felt like I was doing, and I wanted, just some time to sit back and think more about why we were doing what we're doing and kind of investigate some of my curiosities. One of the benefits too of our research year is we have very minimal clinical responsibilities. We do take just light call, I guess it's like we call it intern call, but basically you're there assisting the junior resident on call about once a month ish, maybe a little bit less than that even. And basically that's just to kind of keep you fresh. If you kind of go a full year without doing anything clinical, it can be a little bit overwhelming to come back. So we've found that just by doing a little bit of call throughout the year, it helps the residents kind of stay fresh. And another big thing is if you don't do the research year, a lot of people worry, are you gonna be able to find time for research? And yes, there is definitely plenty of time. Given that we do have a mentorship model, if your surgeon isn't working, you aren't working either necessarily. So you can definitely find other cases that are available, but there's almost always at least an afternoon or two off every month that for whatever rotation you're on, that you're more than able to find some research projects to work on. And we definitely have an improving and more robust, streamlined team now that is really, we're kind of getting the wheels churning of this multi-level tiered research team. And so I think even as the years go on, we're getting more and more facile with getting research done, even when you're not in the research year. Next slide. And so another thing people kind of wonder is, how do the research residents spend their time? When people ask me what did I do research on during my research year, I'm almost overwhelmed to try to tell them all of the different things that I sort of touched on. So it's really though what you want it to be. For me, I'm interested in trauma, so a lot of my stuff was with Dr. Shu and the trauma team. But I also was an engineer in undergrad, and I did a biomechanics project with Dr. Mormon in the lab. I did a research clinical review with the CNSA spine doctors. I basically did a bunch of stuff, and just because I was interested in it, you don't have to say yes to everything, but you do need to complete one basic science, one clinical, and one quality improvement project. That's kind of the baseline requirements, although I don't think anybody has just completed that during their year. And so one of the things I said before is Dr. Shu will actually meet with you weekly, which is actually pretty incredible. He's an extremely busy trauma surgeon, and he really loves research and wants to build a good research team here. And so he met with me every single Friday. We went through my projects. We went through stuff that I was struggling with. If I had questions, it's just like a really nice touch point to have to sort of keep you accountable. But it also gives you some time to do some personal things that we maybe not have had time for before. Traveling was very popular before COVID, but even personally, like I had a list of non-orthopedic books that I had been waiting to read that just to satisfy my curiosity. That felt really good to be able to do some things for myself and have a little bit more flexible schedule compared to our normal clinical schedule. That's it.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Olivia. Turn it over to Dr. Mastracchi.
Hey y'all, I'm Julia Mastracchi, used to be Julia Roithmeyer, if there's any UVA peeps on who knew me by my maiden name, and I'm going to be talking about my experience as a woman. I just want to start off by saying that like being a woman in life and in ortho and at CMC is not a homogenous experience. Different women have different experiences and approach, this differently. So I'm just giving my personal experience. And just for context, I'm cisgender, heterosexual, I'm married, do not have children. So I was basically in regards to like being a woman and what I was looking for in like the woman basket as far as my residency program. I was thinking about 3 different things that I wanted, and CMC has definitely fulfilled. The first thing was I did not want to be the first woman in a program. Again, I've talked to different women in my program, at different programs, people feel differently. I personally wanted to have a community of other women with shared experiences, and CMC definitely has a very robust group of women, diverse women. So I wanted to not be the first woman. The second thing was that I wanted to be able to express my femininity, however I chose to do so. I didn't want to feel like I couldn't, wear pink or have my nails done or wear dresses. That was important to me, just to be able to feel comfortable expressing my femininity, which I've definitely been able to do at CMC. And then third and last, my husband and I do not have children, but I wanted to have the option that if we decided to do so during residency, that I would feel supported. And again, we don't have children, but I feel confident that if we wanted to have children during residency, I would be very supported in doing so.
Thanks so much.
Hey everybody, so sorry about that. I started a little bit early, but I'm on next. I'm Rob Turk. I'm one of the interns, and I'll be talking about my experience as a person of color, as a Black male of color. I'm originally from Colorado. I went to medical school out at UC San Diego, and came out here really the first time, as many of you know, last year we didn't have any away rotations, and so this was a topic that obviously is very important to me, very near and dear to my heart, and something that's very difficult to really get a good feel of without visiting a place in person. So I think, like Julia mentioned, there are a few things I thought I was looking for, and my perspective actually changed as I learned more and went through the process. The number one thing I was looking for is, as Julia said, being the first one that looks like me at a certain program. There's a lot of different programs across the country that will say that they have that they value diversity and that's important to them. But then when I looked at their residency programs and who was there, I didn't see many people who looked like me. So, I was also in dimensions, and it was a topic that I've been passionate about for a long time when I was looking at programs. And at first I thought I was very much okay with being the first, Black person of color at a program. I've always been that kind of person, it's okay with being a pioneer and trying to change the culture at different places. But as I went through the process and really learned more about residency, you start to learn and figure out and just, I guess, accept the fact that residency is hard enough as it is. If you don't have to go somewhere and be the first person who understands, the specific and unique issues that you deal with as, a person of color, of, whatever your minority status might be, it's really helpful. And I think that in order to maximize your own success as a resident and as a future physician, it is always helpful to go somewhere where there's a reduced amount of headwind that you're working against. So, I found that at CMC. I think that, you can look back and see in the past few, not just 1 year, 2 years, but a documented effort and value placed on diversity in many different ways, whether it be minorities, whether it be women, or any other kind of minority in orthopedic surgery. So, so that's one thing I was looking for. The second thing is really support. As I kind of accepted that first part of, why I didn't want to be the first person, or why I would rather not be, is, even when you look at different programs, the residency is one thing, but when you look at the faculty, it's also another point. It's nice to see faculty who look like you. But what's even more important than that, honestly, is having faculty that support you and really have your back, regardless of what they look like. I think there are other programs who may have had a more diverse faculty than us, but when it came down to supporting the people who look like me who were in the residency program, I really felt and heard from people I trusted that were already in the residency, that they really had our back and were really, didn't treat people differently in the residency program. They had the same expectations, and they would fight for you with the same force. And I think that even only the last few months that I've been here, I've seen that, from Dr. Kempton, Dr. Scannell, and other people in the program already, that, if issues have arisen that may have had a race component with it, they were there and they fought for us, with no questions asked. So, I think that that's just a huge privilege, a huge pro of being here. And honestly, my experience so far has been incredible. So always happy to talk more about it if anyone wants to reach out.
All right, hey everybody. I'm Verge. I'm one of the PGY2s, just following up behind Rob. I had a different experience from Rob, where he kind of came in, he didn't rotate or anything like that. I was actually introduced to the program my first year of medical school. And pretty much every year I kind of came up here for Amp Dimensions, Sawbones workshops. And that's when I first got introduced to the program. That's when I met people like Dr. Koh, Dr. McKnight, and even some alumni who just recently graduated, and different attendings. And that's when I really got introduced kind of to the culture and how many people were around who just valued what I valued. Being a Black man, one of the things that I really wanted was a diverse and inclusive residency. I wanted women, I wanted Black people, I wanted white people, people of different color. And that's something that I really value for residency. And I also wanted people who not only said that they supported that, but showed it in their actions. So for me, I saw that pretty much throughout my entire medical school career. I ended up rotating here, and the support here was great. And every single time, I talked to somebody, I could just get that vibe and get that energy. And now that I'm here as a resident, nothing's changed. If anything, it's gotten even better. Unique things that I deal with as a Black man, like I feel like I have a ton of support for. And it's always people kind of go on the bat for me. So I think it's definitely important to go somewhere that definitely has good surgical training, and that you can become a good resident, but also somewhere that values what you value, that you can go and become a better person, and also do things that are outside of kind of medicine and surgery and things like that. Like what are the things that kind of help, make you become whole? And I feel like this place did it all for me. So still happy to be here. Just like Rob, I'm definitely happy to chat about that more.
Okay, my name is Elaine Chang. I'm one of the PGY 4s, and I'm super excited because I get to talk to you guys about my experience as a parent in this program. And Julia kind of alluded to this topic a little bit earlier on. Just some background about my family, so you guys have context about for what I'm going to be talking about. I am married to a family medicine resident. He is a third year here, so he's finishing up. We had our baby now a little bit over a year ago, so I was still a third year junior resident when I gave birth to her. And something that I think is probably common to the experience as a parent in any residency program, no matter what specialty, is that some days are hard, some days are easy. Some days you don't see your child, you know, like I didn't get to spend Mother's Day with her this year, but other days are really great and you don't have clinical duties in the morning and you get to have the cutest study buddy while you're listening to lecture. And other weekends, your schedules kind of align and you get to spend the day at the pool. I think the thing that makes being a parent in this program really special and really unique is the amount of support that I've had, the amount of support that my husband has had as well, and that our family has had in general. So the top left picture is the day that I hit term at 37 weeks, and I hadn't taken a picture on that day. My attending Dr. Pat, who's the vice chair of education, said, hey, we need to take a picture of you in the operating room. So just showing that level of support for my experience as a pregnant junior resident was amazing. And then in the top right corner, that's a picture from when my classmate Catherine actually threw my husband and I a baby shower, and a bunch of residents, both family medicine and orthopedic surgery, came out to celebrate with us. And then all the other pictures are just various experiences that we've had with our friends in the program. My daughter getting to meet Olivia's dog, and Risa feeding my daughter oranges, and then us having a play date with Eric and his family. We've just had such wonderful support in our experience as new parents. And then I also just wanted to put, I included that picture of all of us in scrubs because that's the trauma team that I came back to when I got off maternity leave. And I was the only woman, but all of the men on my team supported me, made sure that I had time to pump and provide nutrition for my baby, and made sure that I wasn't too tired, and just really took care of me. And so something that I'll always remember as a parent in this program is the amount of support that we've had, which has been really, really meaningful to us and helped us get through some rough times. The last thing that I want to say, which I think is the biggest asset of this program, and I just want to echo what you've probably already heard as a common thread already, is that we just have such a diverse program. And it's not just diversity of gender, diversity of race, but also diversity of family units, as you see here. Like, not everybody has kids and not everybody is married or even in a relationship. And I think that's really important. There's diversity of religion, there's diversity of, backgrounds. And that's something that, again, really drew me to this program too. The fact that we are all so different, but we all get along and we all support each other. And we've really formed a community and a real family here in residency.
All right, and I'm going to talk a little bit about my experience as a father here. And you can see kind of some of the different dads that we have in the program, obviously several of us. And I think one of the things that is very common to hear residents say who end up matching here is that, oh, we came for interview day and, we had one on the way, or it was something we had always talked about. And I had this long conversation with this older resident about how easy it was to make it work here, and how good a city this was to raise kids in, and also how supportive everybody was. And I think a few stories that really demonstrate that for me is just my experience with my youngest, who's now a year old, about a year ago, kind of going through the whole, pregnancy process and getting ready for the birth. Two stories really stand out for me that show why this is such a good place to come with a family. And the first was my wife's first ultrasound, and it was going to be at CMC. And so I was excited that I was going to be able to make it for it. And something happened with her appointment and ended up getting delayed for 3 hours. And I was on trauma, actually, so it was a real busy service. and kind of had to run back to the hospital. My attending was about to start a case, and it was a total disaster. We were going to be washing out a horrible infection. And next thing you know, Randy comes flying into the OR and insists that I leave so that he can wash out my terrible infection for me. And I actually skipped a really good case to do it. And then when my son was actually about to be born, one of the things that you'll see is that a lot of us are from all over the country. And so many of us don't have family in the area. And one of the challenges we had was, if my wife goes into labor before her mom flies out here, what are we going to do with our older kid? And the solution we arrived at was that we would just drive over to Joseph's house in the middle of the night without warning, if it came down to it, and leave her there for the night. And that's just kind of the type of atmosphere that we find here. I have co-residents who will forever be known as aunt or uncle. There are a lot of residents who have babysitting from their co-residents. There's a lot of play dates. There's a lot of spouses of our residents who will get together and spend time together, and kind of, share their struggles, share their triumphs of, being married to us as we're going through such a huge growth process. And I think personally, the ability to raise a family here and not feel like life had to be delayed was a gigantic, boost for this residency as I was getting ready to put in my match list. And it's been huge to be able to not just go through residency alongside each other, but go through it together and have that extend all the way to our families.
All right, I think it's back to me for this one. So this slide is sort of intended just to talk about, okay, so, what if you come here for 5 years and you work hard for 5 years and you do the intern grind and the junior residency grind and the senior residency grind, what then? What are you going to get out of your 5 years? And now being a chief resident, I've had the opportunity to, not only go through this process with my class, but I've also watched 4 amazing classes of people come before me and have seen, great fellowships they've gone to and great jobs that they've started. The woman in the middle is Sarah Pierre. She was a chief resident when I was an intern, so she's 4 years ahead of me. And she did not go to a fellowship. She went straight out into practice in the military. And I still keep in touch with her on a weekly basis, which I think tells you a little bit about our culture, right? I was an intern, she was a chief, and we were really close in the year that she was here, and we still are very close. But knowing that she could go out into practice and, do general orthopedics and do some really complex things as a military surgeon has been incredible. She's now going to go back and do a trauma fellowship now that she's done with her military obligation. There's some other, classes of residents that you see below on the slide as well, who've all gone on to some really incredible fellowships in really all the subspecialties within orthopedics. And so I think, if you're going to commit 5 years to a program, your hope is that at the end, it's going to be worth it and you're going to be able to get where you want to go in life. I think, at the beginning, we talked about what the goals were for our residents. And I think Dr. Scannell mentioned leadership, but I think one of the things that really stood out to me when Dr. Pat and Dr. Scannell were talking to me about leadership when I was in your shoes were that, I remember Dr. Pat saying, a leader can be somebody who's a leader in academic medicine. But leaders in orthopedics also are community surgeons that return to their hometown and are really pillars of their community. Leaders are people who, go on to lead national organizations, maybe not just within orthopedic subspecialty areas, but things like the Ruth Jackson Orthopedic Society and others. And I remember thinking okay, so this program wants to create leaders, but that leader doesn't have to look all exactly the same. They're going to take the things that I'm interested in and help foster that for me. I am, very passionate about increasing women in orthopedic surgery. There's a pipeline program called the Pierre Initiative that works with high school girls to expose them to the field of orthopedic surgery in hopes that they may pursue it as a career. And I remember talking with Dr. Pat about Pierre Initiative when I was a 4th-year medical student at my interview here. And the first thing he said to me when I got here as an intern, when I ran into him in the hallway was, okay, so when are you going to lead our Pierre Initiative program? And that really stood out to me because I thought, wow, he remembered from our interview what we talked about, but he also remembered what was important to me. And he was already planning things to help me reach that leadership potential that was important to me. And so that made me feel like, wow, I'm not just another girl for the roster here. Like, they saw Kelsey Koh and what was special about her, and already have plans to foster those like talents moving forward. So I think, you can feel really confident that if on match day you open up your envelope and it says Carolinas Medical Center, that we are fully prepared to help you be whatever kind of leader and the really kind of the best of your potential in your career.
Thanks so much, Dr. Koh. I don't think I can top what she said, but I'll piggyback by saying, it is really everything she just said it is. And it's because we're a family here. And we really do care about, each and every person that's here and their goals and their life aspirations. And we treat each other as such. And that's what makes this place so special. And, I wanted to title these slides CMC Family because that's really what it is. It's a family inside and outside of work. So, all these pictures here, our time spent at work together. So you'll see in the bottom left, this is a whole trauma team when Randy was the chief, and we're all just hanging out in a little tiny call room because we wanted to be together. On the bottom, that's Julia and one of our medical students doing a nail with me in the room. And, you operate together, you see consults together. And I think it's one of the few places I've seen where, your trauma chief will be in the ED or the ICU with you, reducing fractures, distal radiuses, whatever, they really care about us. And I have a vivid memory of, when I was an intern and having Aaron Brandt be my trauma chief and coming down to the emergency department to teach me how to do a distal radius, as a PGY5. And, it's because we care about each other here. And that's really what the CMC family is all about. These are just more pictures of, kind of the experiences you'll have with each other here. You'll operate together, as I said, and you'll spend time with each other inside of the hospital, but also you'll spend time with each other outside of the hospital. And we do this often. So, top right is a picture of all of us going on a hike. Bottom right is a couple of us, see me, Eric, and Lou, and we're here working out at F45 together. We've been known to frequent Sunday dinners together, Sunday cookouts, which you can see on the bottom. The whole trauma team went out for a baseball game, which you can see there. And in the top, we all went to Top Golf. So that's me, Ben, and Julie at Top Golf. And so, not only do these people become your family within the hospital, but they become your family outside of the hospital. And I'm a father. And I think one of the things that I'm most proud of is not only does it become your family in and out of the hospital, but this family becomes your family and your family's family. And so this last slide is near and dear to my heart because you can see these are all some of the people that I love from work and that have become my family. And these are my kids, showing really how deep this goes. On the left, that's Landon with two of my girls at one of our Sunday cookouts. On the bottom, that's Randy with my son, Chance. And I won't embarrass Verge with the video, but from the same time, there's a video of Verge teaching little Chance how to dance. On the bottom right, this is Stevie. This is one of our scrub techs for trauma. And she came out to the baseball game, and her and my daughter Blakely bonded over their hair. And then you'll see this is Chance, taking a little nap with Alex. And so, your family inside the hospital, your family outside the hospital, and it all blends together. And I think that's what makes it so beautiful. So, I don't think I can top it more than that, but I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Scannell for just some last tidbits before we go ahead and take an open form of questions.
Thank you, everybody. So please, we've got a few questions that have come into the chat. I'm going to turn it over to Eric here in a second. The other thing I want to acknowledge, I didn't, and maybe the residents can attest to this, but I didn't force our residents to be here, but I was looking through, I think we have 21 of our 26 residents here and on the call tonight. And the reason they're here is because it's important to them to be here as part of your recruitment, to showcase our program and, to tell you a little bit about us. And we didn't talk a lot tonight about, our case volume or crazy cases that we do here. There's plenty of them, how many of X, Y, and Z cases that we do. but there's plenty of that here. We wanted to make sure that we got the rest of our culture across to everybody. So just a couple announcements, then I'll turn things over for some questions. So we are participating in the Universal Interview Offer Day. Hopefully you all have heard about that. I'm happy to talk about it if you guys want to, but that will be on November 15th. You can see our 3 interview dates, which will all be virtual this year. 1 in December and then 2 in January, and then 2 of our social media accounts. And then I would also, Susan had put it in the account, or excuse me, in the chat earlier, our YouTube page. And there's some great things on there from previous resident talks. And I'll also highlight, I'm not sure if it's up yet, but it will be very soon. Dr. Elaine Chang put together an amazing panel of women in sports medicine just last week. And so we're going to be posting that up on our YouTube page as well. So Eric, I'll turn things over to you, and thank you all for joining us this evening as well.
Awesome, thanks so much. We're going to start kind of going quickly through some of the questions we've gotten in the chat. The first one was asking whether or not we get a lot of trauma volume at Carolinas Medical Center. And I thought that the best person to answer that question would be somebody who is fresh off of night float and has had the privilege of bringing in half of our trauma volume over the course of a month. And actually has one of our interns with her as well, who can touch on that too. So Landon and Nani, if you guys would mind explaining our trauma volume to everybody.
Got it. Hey guys, Landon Bullock. I'm one of the PGY3s. Appreciate Nani hooking me up here with the computer. Sorry I don't have my name displayed. But yeah, so I just finished my 2nd month of night float. It's actually my last one. So you'll be responsible for doing 2 to 3 months, just depending on schedule here at just pure night. So you come in at about 5 p.m. and you leave after checkout in the morning. It's a hard month, but it makes it better for the whole rest of your year. For everyone else, it's just kind of your service to the community. But we're pretty busy. So, I mean, on an average night, I see probably 10 to 12. On a bad night, I saw like 27. On a slow night, 2 or 3, then you can get some research done in the middle. But, and then as far as call from there, I will now do about 1 weekend a month. So we either do a Friday, Sunday split, or you do a Saturday 24-hour. But overall, I get most of my weekends still free. That's probably the best part about night float too, is you still get your weekends. You just work Sunday through Thursday. But overall, I mean, we are a really busy program. Don't be fooled. When it rains, it pours. But the good part about that, at least I appreciate, you work really, really hard while you're at work, and then you get that protected time off. So anything else you want to know about? I mean, I guess we covered that. I mean, ask away if you have any other questions about specifics with call or anything, but I think we are very, very busy. We are right up there. I mean, I rotated at UT Houston and at Emory as well, just other examples. I mean, we're every bit as busy as their trauma department. So it's just trauma is a huge part here. It's not your whole life. So you're at OC a lot or doing other things, and that's a very different vibe. So you'll work different hours. It's not just as hard, but it's different. Trauma is a lot of physical present hours. But it's worth it, and you get a lot of experience in both call and in the OR.
So my experience with trauma, so I just came off of gen surge trauma, which is very different, and I'm now on ortho trauma. But something I wanted to touch on very briefly is talking to my other friends at other programs. When you're off service, there is a tendency to feel very isolated. You're not with your people, you're not with your residency program. And I, on gen surge trauma, felt very lucky that I had really still felt the support of the ortho program, even when I was off service. So for an example, like I had a night I had a really tough trauma that was very emotionally taxing on me. And Landon was on night float, and she came and found me, and we just sat together, and I cried about it in the call room, but I just like needed someone. And then Virg and I talked the next day, Julia and I talked the next day. Like I had multiple residents reaching out to me over the next few days that knew that I had gone through that and just checking in on me, being like, are you okay? So I think that really speaks to, like, you know, when I remember when I was in your guys' position next year and you hear about all these residency programs saying we're a family, like that's a really concrete example of, you know, people having my back, even though I wasn't on service, I wasn't on ortho, no one really knew what was happening to me on gen surge trauma, but I still had people that were actively in touch with what are our interns going through on the op service rotations. So I think that really speaks a lot to just like the culture and the type of people that this program attracts.
Yeah, and I remember being an intern when July 1st, trauma intern. And I think it was Samuel and Elaine had seen me, and I think they were a little nervous because I looked a little sad. And they, within like 2 days, they brought me this like goodie basket and left it in my workroom as an intern. It's like they barely knew me, but it was like candy and like eye cream and just like funny stuff. But it was awesome. Like it was just like a goodie basket and a little note. It's like, these guys barely know me, but they, you join the club, as someone told me when I first got here. It's like you really are part of a group now that knows you and is dedicated to you. So I think that we've worked hard to just keep that, if nothing, just make it continuing to foster these relationships. So.
All right, we've gotten multiple other questions about the call setup, and they touched on that a little bit, but just to give some more concrete details about how exactly it works, Dr. Cohen-Tanugi is going to talk about that for just.
Good evening, everybody. Thanks for making it on this awesome chat. So I'll just touch on our call structure. Honestly, I think you'd be hard pressed to find a better call setup in a residency program. So first of all, as a PGY1, you will always be buddied up with a junior resident PGY2 or 3, and you'll learn, the nuts and bolts of taking call, but you won't ever be the only person responsible for the consults you're seeing. And you also don't do overnight calls at PGY1. So we really want you to learn, but also you're not doing excessively long shifts. Then as a 2 or a 3, we do night float for the weekdays, but on the weekends, we do a Friday, Sunday, or Saturday call shift, which will be 1 24-hour shift. And that's on average once a month. So really, very, very manageable, I would say. As a 4th and a 5th year, you transition to being at home call. So you don't have to stay in-house overnight, but you're on backup if the junior needs some help, or if a patient goes to the OR, you obviously come in and operate. And then during the day, on the weekends as a senior, so either Saturday or Sunday during the day, senior call really becomes one of the highlights of our program from a trauma standpoint, because you typically would run a room. One fellow would be in one OR, and then the senior resident would be in another OR, just knocking out trauma cases that came in overnight or that have been there. So that's kind of one of the culminating operative experience for us as we progress in the program. And that also will be on average once a month. So really, our call burden is very manageable. And there's a progression from PGY1 learning how to take call. PGY2s and 3s are taking most of the in-house call and seeing consults, and then 4s and 5s are there for backup, coming in to operate overnight and then operating on the weekends. So if there's any other questions, please feel free to ask, but I think that kind of covers it. And the last thing I'll say is we have a very supportive culture in terms of seniors helping out. And I don't think there's anybody who's ever felt that, they're calling a senior for help and not getting the assistance they need. So, everybody's really collaborative in this, and we have a good culture.
Awesome, thanks, Sam. One of the questions we tend to get a lot of things like this is, how do fellows impact us? Because obviously there's a lot of fellows at Ortho Carolina. And Dr. McKnight is going to kind of explain how we keep things separate, and also how we benefit from having them around in some ways as well, because that's a very common thing that people want to know.
All right. So I'm Randy. I'm one of the chiefs here. And I had kind of responded in text chat form, but we have fellowships for pretty much everything except tumor and peds. But since we have so many attendings here, you're still going to be mentorship model. You're still going to be one-on-one with your attending, and the fellows will be one-on-one with another attending. So it's pretty rare that you would actually overlap with fellows. Trauma is the exception, because trauma is a team sport. Typically on trauma, there'll be a fellow or a senior resident in the room, and then the junior residents will alternate every other day, essentially going in and having an OR day. And if it's a junior level case, like a tibial nail, femoral nail, ankle fracture, distal radius, whatever, then the senior or the fellow will walk the junior through that case. And the expectation is that eventually the juniors are getting through those cases on their own. Joseph can attest to that. Just knowing that I've been on service with him recently, he basically is doing femoral nails by himself. I don't think I need to be in the room half the time at this point. And he's a new PGY3. That tells you anything. And then the fellows do get there's like a fellowship, was it a fellows teaching award that we give at the end of the year. So the fellows do try pretty hard to teach, and overall there's been you don't get pushed out of good cases, because if it's your attending doing a good case, it's your case. So they're there, but they're generally a pretty good added benefit. Like when I go to fellowship, I'm pretty sure that I get to pick what cases I do each week with every attending. That's not the case here. You get to do the cases with your attending, so you don't miss out on the good cases because the fellows want to cherry pick. And so just something to think about.
There was one question about global health outreach and whether or not we have any involvement with that. And unfortunately, Dr. Braswell is not on with us tonight, but I think it really demonstrates the capacity for that in this program. And he has actually started a virtual conference on a monthly basis with surgeons from Tanzania and Uganda, where we're sharing cases and sharing case presentations, as well as short form lectures, and then going back and forth with them about here's how we do it, here's how you guys do it, and trying to learn from each other. And really see that as a way that we're engaging with the global community and not so much just kind of passing through. There's also a trip that Dr. Shu runs in Latin America on an annual basis. It's been put on hold for COVID, but in many years, residents have gone with him to that and has involved complex deformity correction out in Latin America, with the entire goal being to train the local surgeons how to do those cases better. And over time has actually evolved into American residents coming and learning from them, because they've really become the masters of the topic. And so it's something that exists in our program, and it's something that we try to do in a very intentional manner so that we are giving back to the global orthopedic community and not just taking away from it. We had a couple more questions about kind of follow-up information and getting in touch with us if you have specific questions or want to know more about any particular topic. And just wanted to emphasize that Helen and Susan have emails for all of us, and each of us would be more than happy to field questions from you guys about anything we didn't happen to touch on today, anything that you would like more information about, or anything particular that we talked about that you feel like really resonates with you. For the most part, it's firstname.lastname@atriumhealth.org, but there are many of us who go by a middle name or have a different email. So I would recommend just reaching out to them to make sure that you get the correct email, and then they can put you in contact with us so that we can try to make sure that you guys are going through this fully informed, because it really is tough to go through this without being able to visit everywhere. And we're very confident that if you had the chance to come and see us, that you'd come away loving it the same way that I did when I came through Charlotte for the first time ever. Unfortunately, you don't have that opportunity, but we want to give you guys as much access as possible so that we can create avenues for you to feel like you have gotten to know us the way that we got to know this place and the way that we fell in love with it. That's been an hour. I don't know if we're going to keep taking questions or where we go from here, Dr. Scannell.
I like to stay on time. So I think please reach out if you guys have any questions. I think we've answered everything that's been in the chat so far. I'll close with just a couple comments. I didn't give you guys a lot of background on me, but Eric was mentioning kind of Charlotte and the city that it is. I grew up here in Charlotte. I did leave for a little while, but came back for residency. And then was incredibly excited to have the opportunity to come back here. And I came back here, as did many of our other faculty. So Dr. Hammond was a co-resident of mine. I had mentioned earlier as one of our APDs. Dr. Pat was a previous resident. And if you really look, even online, not that you have to, if you look through our faculty, we have a lot of faculty that have come back here because they enjoy the community in which we work. It's a great place to be with family. It's also a great place to be involved with education. And so that's what has brought a lot of us back here to continue to be a part of that program and get back to the program that helped train us. And then finally, the last thing I would say is, it's a challenging year again, I think, for everybody. It was last year. So hopefully you all have reached out to, students last year trying to figure out and kind of navigate, well, what does this virtual world of interviews look like? I will tell you, I do think you can still get that feel and that culture from programs. And as you go through this process, the most important thing is finding that right fit for you. There are a ton of great orthopedic programs that are out there. Dr. Pat, myself, and the rest of our faculty, we've got great friends that are amazing educators at other programs as well. You've got to find that right fit for you. So we wanted to give you a little taste of who we are. So hopefully you learned a little bit about that tonight. And as Eric and others have mentioned, if you have any other questions, please reach out. We're happy to respond as best we can. So hope you all have a great night, and look forward to seeing some faces virtually again in the future. Y'all have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Scannell.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Dylan.
Thank you all.
Residents, thank you also for your time, for being on. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. This was really helpful.
Good.
Thanks. It was nice to meet you all.
Have a great night.
Thank you. Nice to meet you all.
Susan, Helen, Hannah, if you're still on, thank you guys. Appreciate it. Joseph, I know you're still on. And then I'll send a text to Kelsey and Eric as well for helping. So y'all have a good night.
This is great. I think it was awesome. Thanks, all residents. Were great. Thank you, guys.
Thanks.
Yeah, it was great.
Helen, appreciate it.
Thanks, Joseph.